I regret it so much AP started blackmailing me with our intimate pictures. I had no idea what to do.
I cheated on my husband before his family gathering. I regret this so much. Although it is wrong, giving in to desire feels so good. I am the only one to blame for the position I am in right now. Have any of you found yourself in a situation like this? How did you come out of it? I know I have messed up and there's no way I can undo it. I, 40 and have been married to 46 for 12 years. My husband, Dan, works for a marketing agency. I'm a housewife. We have 2 boys who are 10 and 8 years old. I met my husband 15 years ago. I was a waitress at a restaurant/bar that was really trending those days, where he used to visit regularly with his friends. I always found him good looking. He always made a point to sit in my booths. One time, the other waitress tried to serve him, but he refused and requested for me. I waited for him to make a move, but nothing. One day I thought I'm gonna ask him out myself. He beat me to it though. He was my last customer that evening. After my shift was over, I came out to find him waiting for me. He asked me for my number, and a few days later when he texted me asking me out on a date, it was an instant yes. We dated for 3 years before we decided we should get married. Our marriage was everything one could dream of. I worked for a little while after our marriage, but when I conceived my eldest son, I stopped going to work. I've been a housewife since then. My family life was going extremely well. My friends always used to tell me that they are jealous of me. My husband loved me. We had 2 wonderful children. It was really a dream life till I had to go and up everything. My husband at work requires him to travel a lot of time. It wasn't much of a deal since I always had the boys and was never left alone, even when I wanted to. My boys went to boarding school this summer. I didn't want them to go so young, but it was a tradition in my in-laws' family. My husband had gone too. I started feeling lonely after my boys went to boarding school this summer. My husband was out for work mostly as well. All my friends were also busy in their life. It also started to feel really boring. I thought of joining some classes. It was the best way to pass time. I browsed some classes near me and finally decided that I should join art classes. I always had an interest in art in my school days, but never got the time to continue it. I had all the time in the world now. I went to the website of this art class near me. An artist who was in his 30s was conducting these. I quickly filled all the formalities and enrolled myself quickly. In the evening when Dan and I were having dinner, I told him that I was joining an art class. He was excited for me. "You should explore your hobbies, Han," he said happily. I truly had won the lottery for the best husband. He was always so supportive. The day for my first class finally came and I went there. I was quite nervous. At the age of 40, starting something new felt quite intimidating, but Dan was right. I needed to explore this for me, I thought as I looked in the mirror. I wore a white sundress. I didn't want to look too uptight or anything. I finally reached the location. It was a studio. It wasn't either too big nor too small. It was a good place. I was the first one to reach there, so I admired the interior and everything. It had a full-length mirror on one of the walls. Whoever designed the interior of this place had a good choice. "Found something you like?" a voice broke my attention. I turned to look and found a young man standing near the door. He smiled at me and I gave him a small smile back. "I'm John, your teacher," he introduced himself. This young man was going to teach me art. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. I introduced myself to him as well. John smiled at me and told me to take a seat. John started asking me what I liked more, drawing or painting. I told him that I liked both. "It's all right with you, I'll start by explaining the basics to you." I was confused as I was the only person there. "Aren't we going to wait for other people?" I asked him. He told me that I was the only one in this class. "I only take one-on-one classes," he said smoothly. I must have missed that on the website. John started explaining to me the basics. He told me what all objects will cover, etc., etc. There was something about John. I couldn't pinpoint it, but he gave me a different energy. He would give me complete attention since I was the only person in the studio, but it was also the way he looked at me. Like I was special or something. It felt weird to get this type of attention from a stranger, but let's be honest here, I also enjoyed it a bit. Whenever I was drawing something or painting something, John would come and sit closer to me. He got really close to me a few times. He would hold my hands and show me where I was going wrong. It didn't feel like a normal teaching equation, but I couldn't tell him to maintain some distance. I didn't want to. I always looked forward to going to the studio. Even though I had scheduled classes twice a week, John had told me that I was always welcomed here to hang out or to draw something. Whenever I used to visit the studio, John would always treat me with such warmth and gentleness. It felt good. Even though, it also felt wrong to receive this type of attention from a stranger when I had a loving husband back home. Dan had gone out of station for a work-related thing. I thought that instead of being alone at home, I should head to the studio. I got ready, putting a bit extra than I would have normally put in. I picked a cute dress and also applied my favorite red lipstick. I told myself, I'm doing it for me, but a part of me knew that I was lying. I went to the studio and found John there. He was surprised to see me. I told him that I would like to draw something here if that's all right with him. He said it was perfectly fine and we both took our seats. I was engrossed in the piece I was working on that I didn't realize when John came and stood behind me. It was only when he placed his hands on my shoulders that I looked up at him. Beautiful, he said. Oh, thank you, it isn't completed yet though, I thanked him. He laughed then. That piece is great, but I was talking about you. You look beautiful tonight, oh. I was stunned. Thank you, I guess, I told him quietly. I started feeling nervous suddenly. Even though I had a teeny tiny crush, as the kids today call it, it still felt inappropriate. John took my sketchbook from my hand and kept it on the side. He started massaging my shoulders. What are you doing? I whispered, my voice coming shaky. Just give you a massage, relax your shoulders for me. I didn't know if I was imagining it or his voice was more husky than normal. I told him it's not appropriate, but he wasn't letting it go. His hands went to my back. I haven't been intimate with Dan lately since he was always busy with his work, and I was always busy with the kids. We didn't spend time together like that anymore. So as John kept massaging me, I realized that I missed it, and now when I was getting it, I didn't want it to end. That night I made the biggest mistake of my life. I went to his home with him. My conscience knew that I was doing the wrong thing, but desire took over and conscience died. Don't get disgusted, but John gave me something I was missing. The way he touched me aroused the desire inside me. I slept with him. I came back home the next morning. I left John's house while he was sleeping. I couldn't look at anyone. I felt so horrible. John kept telling me how he couldn't get enough of me and wanted more time with me. But my guilt wouldn't let me spend more time with him. As I came to my home with memories of my family, the guilt increased tenfold. I'm a horrible woman, I told myself. I have a loving husband and a wonderful family. I shouldn't make such decisions. I did my household work and decided that I will never keep foot in that studio ever again. My thoughts got interrupted when I got a call from John. Why did you leave like that? He asked me. I told him that what happened between us can never happen again. He refused to let it go. He told me that if I didn't go back to his house, he would come to mine. John seemed the type of guy who would actually do it. I was sure he had my address from the information I put in the form when I joined his classes. I didn't want him to come to my home. I didn't want my neighbors to see him and ask questions. I didn't want to risk something like that, so I decided to go to his house and tell him face to face that whatever happened between us can never happen again. I reached John's house at 8 o'clock sharp. My resolution to tell him my decision dissolved when he opened the door and kissed me instantly. I wasn't used to this urgency and passion, and it felt so good. I feel awful for that. John treated me with such warmth, but at the same time he used to treat me with so much passion. I missed this passion with my husband. It was there in the beginning, but as responsibilities increased, it went away. You could have it now, John told me, and even though I knew the right thing was to leave his place, I couldn't. I stayed there. I thought of giving myself one more night and that would be it. The next morning, John woke up before me. I can't have you running away again, he told me when I asked how he's up early. He brought me coffee and put my hair behind my ears in a soft touch. I know you feel guilty because of this, but you don't have to, he told me. He explained to me how we all need something in our life to have some fun. It's not right, I told him. He kissed me and asked if it felt wrong to me. I couldn't say yes. Being with John felt right in some way. He gave me passion and urgency. Maybe he was right and I did need it. I was always the dutiful wife. The good mother. I could have this for me just for a little while, I thought stupidly. I told John that if we agreed to continue this, we have to be secretive about it. We came to a conclusion as to how we will meet on days when Dan will be out for work. Dan wouldn't even notice this, I thought in my head. I left John's house and came to my home. Dan was going to come home that night. I did some cleaning around the house and then prepared dinner for him. Dan came home around evening. While we were having dinner, he told me that his mother's birthday was coming up and they were having a party at their villa. My mother-in-law's birthday has always been a huge celebration. The whole family, they have a pretty big family, comes together and celebrates it. Everyone loves it because it's those few times when the entire family comes together. I told him that I was going to get her birthday gift soon. The day of the family gathering came. I hadn't met John for over a week by that time. I got a message from him in the morning telling me that he wants to meet me. I told him that I couldn't meet that day as I had to go for some family event. He kept insisting that I go to his house, even for a little while. He was so persistent that I gave in and told him I'll be there. I made some excuse to Dan that I forgot to pick the birthday gift. I made my way to John's house. As soon as I made my way inside his house, he started kissing me. I kissed him back and we went to his bed. After an hour later, I realized that I had to rush back home as I needed to go to my in-laws' house as well. I rushed to my house. Dan reached the house 10 minutes after me. We got ready and went to their place. Dan told me that I looked really beautiful and the guilt came back. I smiled at him but felt awful. The evening was amazing. All of my in-laws are really warm and kind to me. They have always been kind to me since the beginning of my relationship with John. My mother-in-law told me that she's happy to see Dan so happy with me. She has always been a mother figure to me. Her being happy for us made me feel so regretful for what I'm doing with her son. We came back from their house. The guilt I was feeling overwhelmed me. I didn't realize it when I started crying. Dan asked me what was wrong. I told him that I missed the boys. It felt weird lying to the man I have spent 15 years of my life with. The guilt consumed me and I decided that I was never seeing John again. Giving in to the temptation felt good, but I cannot hurt Dan. I stopped texting John and stopped picking his call. I thought everything was going to get better, but I couldn't have been more wrong. One day, when I opened my text messages, I saw intimate pictures of me and John. The pictures were taken from an angle where it was clear that it was me. John had sent me this. He asked me to pay $50,000 or he would send the pictures to my husband. Hell, that bastard trapped me. I was so livid. How could he do this? But the fault was mine. I trusted a complete stranger and looked where it got me. Karma was a bitch, I was sure of it now. I didn't have the money he was asking for. I also don't want those pictures to break my family. If anyone has any suggestions as to what I should do, please leave in the comments. I'm in desperate need of help. Update. It has been more than 6 months. John kept blackmailing me initially, like someone said in the comments. I told him that I wasn't scared of him and I would take him to the police if he continued to harass me. It didn't work because he knew he found my weakness. I couldn't give him that much money even if I wanted to because I didn't have it. If I asked Dan for such a big amount suddenly, he would have figured something was going on. I asked John to give me some time to figure something out, but that bastard didn't listen to me. He sent those pictures to my house to scare me. He must have thought that I would get scared and give him the money instantly, but instead of me, Dan found that envelope. He was home early from work while I was at the grocery store. I came home to find him sitting with the envelope in front of him. I didn't understand what was going on, but one look at his face and I knew that he knew. I didn't even need to see the envelope, but I did. There was no point in lying anymore, so I told Dan the complete truth. I told him how guilty I felt. I couldn't stop the tears coming to my face. I begged him for his forgiveness, but he showed no signs of any emotions. He left the house shortly after that. I stayed awake waiting for him, but he never came back home. I texted him as to where he is. He wasn't picking up my calls or answering my texts. I contacted his friends, but no one knew where he went. I just received a text from him the next morning to never contact him again. Just like that, my whole life crumpled in front of me. It hurt a lot knowing I had no one to blame for it except myself. 2 days later, I got divorce papers from our lawyers. Dan had requested for full custody of the boys. I called him up, grateful when he picked up. I begged him to not do this. I asked him to not take the kids away from me. I can't let them get raised by a woman I hate so much, he said without any emotion. In all these years, he had never spoken to me like this. I knew I had f***ed up everything and there was nothing I could do to salvage it now. I got a call from the lawyers telling me to leave the house by the next morning as it was legally Dan's property. John called me once again trying to scare me, but I told him that I had already lost everything and to f*** off. It felt slightly better. My sons refused to talk to me as well. Dan must have told them what had happened. No surprise that they hate me as well. I left the house in tears and have been living with my parents who also don't talk to me and have told me to find a place for myself as soon as possible. Anyone reading my story, I just want to tell you that even though giving in temptation feels so good, don't let your conscience die. I made that mistake and there isn't a moment in my life when I don't regret it.
For 20 years, I was married to a devil and I didn't have any clue about it. A devil is even an angel where my stupid wife is. I honestly don't know where to start my story from. I'm currently in a state of a fiasco. I woke up one day and discovered the family I knew wasn't mine. The family I worked tirelessly for and even sacrificed everything for wasn't mine. Women are evil. In my next work, I would rather be an eunuch than get married. That's how bad my situation is. My name is Burke, not my real name though. For the sake of privacy, I will be using fake names. I'm 48 years old. The name of my wife is Katie and she is 45 years old. Katie and I have been married for 20 years now. I work offshore, so I'm rarely around. Katie, on the other hand, is a celebrity chef. Our marriage is blessed with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. I thought I had a beautiful family not until a few months ago when I realized everything was a facade. Never in my wildest imagination would I have imagined that Katie would do this to me. I don't deserve this kind of betrayal. I can't believe my wife of 20 years has been cheating on me for the past 20 years. And what stings more is the fact that none out of the 3 kids is mine, and I'm depressed right now. That's the reason I thought it's wise to share my story here so that people can advise and encourage me on what to do. Have you ever been in this kind of situation? How did you handle it? How can I ever get over this? For clarity's sake, I will take my time and explain how everything happened. So Katie and I go way back. I have known Katie almost all my life. She was my best friend, my soulmate, and everything. Well, so I thought. I always thought getting married to Katie was the best decision I have ever made, and honestly, I never thought a day would come when I would regret everything. I have never had any reason to suspect Katie because I thought we were on the same page, but 3 months ago something happened at work. I was falsely accused of stealing, which got me suspended from work indefinitely. Looking back now, I'm glad everything happened because the whole situation opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I got to discover a lot of hidden secrets too. Immediately, I lost my job. I came back home to my family so I could be at least comforted, but nothing prepared me for what was waiting for me. As soon as I got home and informed my dear wife what happened at my place of work, her countenance changed immediately. The only thing my stupid wife uttered from her mouth was, "So what are you going to do now?" I ignored her comment because I thought she was flabbergasted and shocked by the revelation, but as time went by, she proved otherwise. Every day she would wake me up with, Your mates are outside working and you are here just wasting away. I was surprised by the sudden change of character because the Katie I knew was different from the one I met in my house when I got suspended from work. Note that I usually send 80% of my salary to Katie at the end of every month. I usually tell her to take some for housekeeping, some for the children's basic needs and school essentials. I always advise to save some of it for rainy days like this. But I got the biggest shock of my life when my foolish wife told me there was no savings. Believe me, my salary is not small. I usually work 3 weeks offshore and I always get just a week out. That's why I send almost all the money I toil day and night to my family because I don't want them to lack anything in my absence. I almost passed out when my stupid wife told me there were no savings. That's where I started suspecting her because no matter how I did the calculations, I still could not understand how she spent all the money and worst of all, even TL. But she couldn't account for how she spent the money. Another thing that intensified my suspicion was that my stupid wife wasn't always at home. She hides under the guise of being a chef and spends days outside claiming to be working. It's weird because for someone as big as she is who has a sous chef working under her, I couldn't understand why she was away 24/7. It was at this point that I started paying close attention to her movement and activities. I started by asking the kids if this is how their mom goes out every day, and I was shocked when they told me she was hardly at home just like me. In fact, they told me they know me better than their mom because I at least spend a week with them every month, but they can't say the same for their mom. Honestly, this revelation broke my spirit because while I was out there toiling to feed my kids and finding closure in the fact that my kids are at least with their mom and she is looking after them, my kids were, in fact, being trained and looked after by different nannies while their so-called mother is out there lavishing my money. The infuriating thing about this whole situation is nobody knows what Katie uses her money for because I take care of all the bills even though she works and earns well. On one fateful day, I got lucky and got access to Katie's phone. Anyone who knows Katie knows she doesn't joke with her phone and carries it around like an egg. But on this fateful day, her phone was in her hands and she dozed off. I quickly took the phone from her hands and tiptoed out of the room like a petty criminal. I knew the sleep wasn't deep and that she might wake up at any moment, so I quickly cloned her phone. I had researched about it before, but I never got the opportunity to experiment it. But alas, the golden opportunity came. I cloned the phone and immediately took it back before she woke up. With everything on Katie's phone now in my phone, I decided to go through everything one after the other, bit by bit, and damn, nothing prepared me for the things I discovered. How I didn't get a heart attack that day is still an unexplainable mystery because my chest was literally beating. I could see it. At one point, it even felt like my heart would jump out from my chest. I discovered through chats that my wife has been cheating on me for the past 20 years, and that's not all. All our 3 kids are not mine. Let me still shock you all, the kids have different fathers. If I had not seen those chats with my eyes, I would have doubted the whole thing. If even with the evidence I didn't want to believe the kids I loved more than anything else in this world weren't mine. In the chat with her friend, Katie was telling her how I would never find out the kids ain't mine, and I will keep training them till they're done with college. Then after that, she might just have pity on me and disclose everything to me. Then she doesn't care about the consequences because I would be old and weak, and the fear of spending my old age alone would leave me with no other option than to accept the kids and forgive her. I also discovered she spends my money on these baby daddies. They're basically on her payroll, and that's what she uses her money and my money for. At this point, I wanted the ground to open and just swallow me up so badly. I was lost in thought for days. I couldn't understand why the woman I love so much would betray me like this. That's how I got here. I'm still in shock. I don't know what to do. I can't discuss this with anyone because I'm ashamed of everything. I mean, how can I tell my friends that my wife has been cheating on me for the past 20 years, and I just found out that my kids are not mine? That's why I have come here to anonymously ask for advice. A part of me still wants to run a DNA test on the kids because maybe everything is a joke or even a prank. Maybe one of the kids might actually be mine, or 3 of them might actually be mine, who knows? Please, I need advice, guys. Should I secretly run a DNA test? Katie doesn't know I'm now aware of her outrageous secret, and I want to keep it that way for now till I'm able to verify everything. I just hope all this is just a bad dream and I wake up from this nightmare soon. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm back to update you guys on my story. Just like most of you suggested, I decided to go for a DNA test. I took a piece of hair from their hairbrush and secretly took it to a hospital in another city where no one knew me or my family and ran the test. Unfortunately, the DNA results proved that none of the kids was mine. For the first few seconds after opening the result, I was perplexed. I couldn't even utter a word. I just stood like a statue. It dawned on me at that moment that 20 years of my life had just been wasted just because I got married to Jezebel herself. That fateful day, I drove back home with my hands shaking. I couldn't even concentrate on anything. I got back home, and as usual, the kids ran out to welcome me. Seeing them welcoming me joyfully with a smile on their faces brought tears to my eyes because I couldn't bring myself to believe that kids aren't mine. How do I even break the news to them? Where should I start? I pretended like everything was fine, acted normal, and went inside as usual. Katie wasn't at home when I got back. I called her and asked her where she was, and she lied to me that she was at work, but deep down I knew she was lying. She arrived home 6 hours later at almost midnight, claiming work was hectic and that she was tired. I wanted to confront her and slam the DNA results on her face so badly, but I decided to keep my cool and wait for the perfect opportunity. While sleeping next to her, it occurred to me that I didn't know the woman I married and that I married a monster. That night I couldn't sleep as I kept thinking all night. The following day, my stupid wife woke up, got dressed, and said she was going to work. Something kept telling me to follow her. That's how I followed her on that day. My stupid wife, who told me she was going to work, drove into a hotel, picked a hungry-looking guy up, and drove straight to the car dealer shop. I didn't know what was happening at first, but soon enough I was able to put the puzzle together. Apparently that fateful day was her lover's birthday, and she took him to a car dealership to get him a car as his birthday gift. At this point, I couldn't take it anymore, so I got out of my car, walked up to her, and gave her a dirty slap. The stupid guy wanted to intervene, but I warned him to stay out of it. The stupid guy is not even my problem because Katie had lots of lovers and they were mostly young boys. When I noticed people were beginning to gather at the scene, I quickly got into my car and left, but that was after I gave Katie a piece of my mind. I warned her not to step foot into my house again and that it was over. On my way home that day, I couldn't think straight because here I was struggling to buy gas for my car because I was out of a job and broke, but my wife was going about busy spending the money I gave her to save on stupid guys. I got home that day and I didn't know what to do or how to act. I didn't want to involve the children. How do I bring myself to tell them I wasn't their father? But luckily for me, they were still in school by the time I got back, so I quickly dashed into the room and packed everything that belonged to Katie out of my house. Just as I was doing that, the devil arrived. She asked me to stop so that she could explain. Initially, the fool wanted to lie about the whole situation, claiming that the guy I saw her with earlier was her younger cousin. It was at that point I knew I married Jezebel herself. With her crocodile tears, she called me insecure, and that I embarrassed her just because I saw her with her cousin. She told me her cousin wanted to buy a car, but since he was inexperienced, he begged her to assist him, and that's why she took him there, and not that she was the one buying the car for him. At that moment, I couldn't help it, so I gave her 3 dirty slaps on one cheek. It took everything in me to restrain myself from getting physical with her. I asked her to get out of my house and that she was an unrepentant liar. I told her everything I knew, about how I started suspecting her and even started monitoring her movement. I took the DNA result and slammed it to her. It was at that point that her face cleared. She started begging, claiming everything was the devil's work. Oh wow, isn't it funny how the devil gets blamed for every stupid mistake women make? I asked her why she betrayed me the way she did, and she couldn't even give me a reasonable excuse. She opened her dirty mouth and told me it was because I wasn't always around and that she got lonely at some point. But is that enough reason to allow me to raise another man's kids? I asked her. She couldn't even utter a word. She just kept saying it was the devil and that she didn't even know what came over her. I told her to leave and expect divorce papers from my lawyers, but she refused, crying like a child that just lost his candy. I had to call security to come push her out of my house. While that was happening, the kids arrived and asked me why I was sending their mom out of the house. I couldn't tell them anything, so I told them their mom would explain better, but that for now, they need to go with their mom. I told them I was going through something right now and I just wanted to be alone. Katie opened her stupid mouth and told me I can't do that it's not right for me to send my kids away just because we are having a disagreement. Can you guys imagine this woman is trying to tell the kids that I'm a bad man? Well, I used the opportunity to tell kids I'm not their father. I know they will not really understand because the oldest of them is just 12 years old while the youngest is 8. We didn't start having kids early because I wasn't always around. I wanted to be part of my kids' life. So I suggested we wait till around the time I was planning my retirement before having kids. Well, back to the subject of the day. Telling the kids I wasn't their father wasn't an easy thing, but I'm glad I did. Because a dangerous woman like Katie can poison their minds tomorrow, telling them their father abandoned them, so I'm glad I clarified that. The oldest child sort of understood everything because immediately I told them I wasn't their dad. He asked me who is their dad, but I asked him to direct that question to his mom. That's how Katie shamefully left my house with the kids. The following day, as early as 6 a.m., Katie and her parents arrived at my house. The parents pleaded I forgive her and just forget about everything for the sake of the kids, but I told them the kids ain't mine. They were shocked when I told them this. Apparently, Katie left out that part when she narrated everything to them. They asked me if it was all three of them, and I said yes. Katie's parents became so weak they couldn't even say anything. With their heads shamefully bowed down, they told me they would accept any decisions I wanted to take with their daughter, but I should please not send the kids away. They gave me an example that some people adopt kids and some even take care of children that are not theirs, but I told them all that is true, but not under this kind of circumstances. I made it clear to them that there's no way I would raise another man's kids while their fathers are out there. Then tomorrow, when I'm done taking care of them and paying their bills, they will look for their fathers and reunite with them. Or one stupid man might just up at my day someday asking for their child. At that moment, Katie's parents had to cut in. They asked me what I meant by different fathers, and I told them the kids had 3 different fathers. They stood up immediately, apologized to me, and left. They told Katie they didn't want to see her back at their house and that she was a big disgrace. While they were about to leave, my lawyer arrived just in time and gave Katie the divorce papers to sign. She refused to sign, but I threatened her I would leak the story to the press if she refused, and since she was a celebrity chef, that would be bad for business. With this, she quickly signed the papers. We'll be meeting in court to start the divorce proceedings soon. I need advice, guys. What should I do? Should I cut all communication with the kids, or I should still be in their lives? I'm in a state of a fiasco right now, and sincerely, I don't know what to do. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm back to update you guys. The divorce has finally been finalized. Katie got full custody of the kids. The judge asked why I didn't want to have joint custody of the kids and if I was trying to avoid responsibility, but I told her the kids ain't mine. That's how Katie got full custody of the kids. After the divorce, I wasn't still satisfied. I wanted to make Katie pay for everything she had done to me. The pain was still fresh in my heart. Even divorcing her couldn't give me the closure I needed. I wanted her to suffer so badly, so I came up with a plan. Remember I told you guys that I cloned her phone when I started suspecting her? Well, through the help of an IT friend, I was able to hack her bank account, and that's how I swept up all the money from there. My friend did a good job. There's no way the money can be traced back to me. My friend is that good. Technically, I got my money. All the money I've been sending her to save. Not everything, though, but I'm glad I swept up her account. This will make her suffer. Good luck to her trying to raise 3 kids with an empty bank account. Even with all these, I wasn't still satisfied. I know a lot of people might think I'm evil, but only I know the pains I went through when I discovered my 3 kids weren't mine, and that my wife had been cheating on me for the past 20 years. At this point, I still wanted Katie to suffer for ruining my life, so I came up with another plan to make her pay. Since her phone was still cloned on my phone, I got her sex videos, lots of them, and posted them on all her social media accounts. Remember I told you guys she was a celebrity chef? This ruined her entire career. She called me crying one day and asked me why I had dedicated my time to ruining her life. She told me she knew I was the one who hacked her bank account and took all her money, and that she also knew I was the one who used her social media to post her naked videos online. She begged me to please forgive and that she was sorry for everything. She told me no excuse could justify what she had done to me. Unfortunately for her, I didn't buy any of the things she was saying because I knew she was only crying and begging because the heat was getting to her and not because she was sorry. At that moment, I felt relieved knowing the person who ruined my life was also suffering. I decided to go for therapy because the whole thing affected me in a bad way. I started drinking and eating unhealthy food. I added rapid weight, and that was how I became overweight. I was living recklessly because it suddenly occurred to me that I didn't have any reason to live anymore, no kids, no job, and no wife. But I decided to go for therapy because I realized a dead man tells no tales. And once there's life, there's hope. I'm glad I sought help because I'm finally coming back to who I used to be. I also registered at a gym and started working out, also started eating healthy. I have dedicated my time to work on myself. It's going to be a long journey, but I'm taking one step at a time. I also got news that changed everything for me. Remember I told you guys I got suspended from work because I was falsely accused of something I knew nothing about? Well, the mess was sorted and I was called back to work with a double promotion and my arrears were paid in full. I was happy when I got the email from my employees apologizing for the mix-up. I'm glad I'm back to work healthy because that would take my mind off everything. As for my stupid wife, she is back at her parents' house with the kids because she lost everything. The video I posted ended her career, so everything went down the drain. I don't have any regrets about what I did, and if given the same opportunity, I would do it all over again. And with no job and no money, Katie went back to her parents' house with the kids. Apparently, all the kids' fathers are just jobless fools, and it happened she was the one bankrolling them with my money all these years. In the end, I'm glad everything happened because it opened my eyes and I got to discover a lot of hidden secrets. Imagine finding out at 60 years old that all my kids ain't mine. I don't think I would have suffered the shock.